Hare Krishna. We will get started now. We will start with Mangalacharan prayers. As usual, I will share the screen. These prayers are in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita as it is, which all of you should have your paper copy in front of you. And yeah, very good. And also it's also available on vedabase.io. So Bhagavad Gita introduction. Please recite these prayers in your on mute, but very, very prayerfully. And you should see a very good absorption in Bhagavad Gita whenever you recite these prayers very prayerfully. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutah Padkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktarvinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. We are starting with chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. And the title given in the original sort of the first person who gave titles was Adi Shankaracharya. And it's become sort of the standard titles. The Gita Press, Bhagavad Gita also has these titles called Atma Sanyam Yoga. Basically, it is controlling the mind. And dhyana is also all about controlling the mind. So that is the topic we want to go over today. Before we begin this topic, I want to introduce an important concept. So let us go a couple of slides back. So if you remember, chapter 5 was giving a sort of a final integrated understanding of Nishkama Karma Yoga and Dhyana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga primarily means that giving up all the activities itself and simply focusing on the internal self or the internal Atma. So because one realizes that that is the only truth and there is no other truth apart from that. So, or that is the only spiritual truth. Everything else is material. So, in 5th chapter, we understood that whether we give up the results of our work or give up work itself, basically they are one and the same, because in both, one is not at all interested in the fruits of activity or fruits of action, and the activity or action has to be done anyway to maintain the body. Now, towards the end of chapter 5, so that was sort of the integrated understanding of Nishkama Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Lord Krishna said that both paths essentially are one and the same, or the core principle or the core essence is the same. He will review that concept in 2 verses in chapter 6 also, first 2 verses. We'll cover that. But towards the end of chapter 5, Lord Krishna gave a very a insight or a view, a short view into the highest stage of Jnana Yoga, which is the state of samadhi. And finally, so that was in verse numbers 27 and 28 of the 5th chapter. In the last verse, 29th verse of the 5th chapter, Lord Krishna gives the highest understanding that one should come to, which is Krishna himself. So, Gyatva mam shantim rachyati. Those who know me to be everything, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, Bhoktaram Yajnatapasam. I'm going in the reverse direction. Gyatva mam. So one who knows me to be all of these is the highest state of knowledge or attains highest peace. But he will say that in the 6th chapter, that is the highest form of yoga. So we cover sort of all 3 in 5th chapter: Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, as well as Bhakti. And also, of course, Karma Yoga is integrated into that understanding of the integration of Jnana and Karma Yoga. So essentially, all 4 are discussed in chapter 5. Now, why I am saying all this? The reason why I am saying all this is, first of all, Dhyana Yoga, as we saw in the end, so verse numbers 27 and 28 of 5th chapter indicate Dhyana Yoga. So, Dhyana Yoga is a form of yoga by itself, but essentially it is, if you sort of include, it can be included easily as a advanced stage of Jnana Yoga as well. So in most philosophical texts or various other commentaries by other acharyas on Bhagavad Gita, you will see basically 3 forms of yoga: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga will start in full force in chapter 7. Chapter 6 is about Dhyana Yoga. You can consider it as a yoga form of yoga by itself, or as a extension or the most advanced level of Jnana Yoga. The other aspect that I wanted to bring out before we start chapter 6 is that all of these aspects, which is Jnana Yoga and the more advanced form of Jnana Yoga, like I mentioned, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, have different destinations or one has different realizations. This is why Dhyana Yoga is given its own category, because the advanced level of jnana, the result or the destination is different. So let us go through that, and that is the reason why Dhyana Yoga is separated out as its own category. So we'll go back a few slides. So this was the last verse of chapter 5, which starts with Bhoktaram Yajnatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shanti Brachati. So I hope all of you can understand break down the Sanskrit. It means these 3 things: Bhoktaram Yajnatapasam. I am the receiver of all yajnas. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, I am the Lord of all the worlds. And Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, I am the friend of all living entities. And one who knows that I am this, or Lord Krishna is this, has the real enlightenment. So, in this 5th chapter, we discussed 3 levels of realization. Brahman, which is described in the 5th chapter as Brahma Nirvanam. It has been used multiple times, especially in verse numbers 24 and 25 and 26. 3 verses describe Brahma Nirvana stage. And then the Paramatma stage, Paramatma realization stage, which will be discussed in chapter 6, because that is the destination of those who practice Dhyana Yoga. And finally, the Bhagawan realization, which is realized by those who are following Bhakti Yoga. So what are these 3 stages? So first of all, I wanted to provide scriptural evidence of the clear categorization of these 3 levels of realization from Srimad Bhagavatam, pretty much the very beginning. Second chapter of first canto says, Vadanti tatvidam tattvavidas tattvam yadjnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. So what it means is that the supreme Lord, or the supreme absolute truth, that supreme essence, by all the learned sages is known. That same supreme absolute truth is known at 3 levels: Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, and Bhagavan, or Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So what does it mean? Let's just understand that a little bit more in practical terms. So for example, I have taken this example here of the government. So the government can be understood in 3 different levels. Now, for someone, I have taken the example of US government. Many, you can, it can apply to any country. So when you say, what is the government? So the first level is you can say, hey, the government is the one that provides all basic facilities, builds roads and bridges, and, runs the airports and so many things. So we pay taxes to the government, and we see the government working in a way that benefits the citizens. So you don't see any person there, you see the effects of the government. So you cannot put a finger and say this is government. You see the effects of it. So it is as if some superior power is running the show, and you are only seeing what is the output. Then if you come a little closer, this is the view from far away, and you can see it everywhere. So please note some of the characteristics. It is visible everywhere, or almost everywhere, and you can see it from a great distance. Now, when you come closer, let us say the US government or the federal government, not just state governments, same thing could apply there. You say, okay, well, if you really want to see it, you have to go to Washington, D.C. So when you come closer, sort of the center of US government is this big building called the US Capitol. So you come closer and you get something more personal. You can feel it and touch it. You can, touch the building. You can see it. But still, it is not something that you can interact with. You just see it. So you see the form. So this aspect of the form is very important. But you cannot really interact with it, and it's not a person. We interact with a person. Then you come even closer, let's say, again, I'm not differentiating between White House. Don't ask where is the White House or Capitol. It's just, I'm just trying to give an example. You get even closer and you meet the president. So he is the head of the government. And of course, you can say he is the government. The rest of the government, as they say, works for the pleasure of the president, which means that they are working for the president. The president's word is ultimate. So that is the sort of, you get, that's as personal and as close as it gets. You cannot get closer than that. So it is the most personal and the closest that you can get to when you say what or who is the government. Okay, so I hope this example is fairly clear when you say what or who is the government. Now I will switch the slide and the titles will remain the same, just the pictures will change. So here I go. Whoops. Where did that go? Some glitch happened. Hold on. Okay. Okay, so this was the picture. And now I have switched the slides. Now we are applying this to the entire material universe, or all the universes put together. So when you say, who is God? One of the answers is God is everywhere. And you see the effect of the presence of God everywhere. You look up in the sky, you see a beautiful blue sky with the sun shining, with green pastures, grass, and the entire nature, whatever we call as nature, working in perfect harmony. So that is the impersonal effect of the presence of Bhagwan. If you think about it, as humans, we may be the greatest scientists, we may have the greatest technology, but we cannot manufacture a blade of grass. We can have fake grass on which we play football or, soccer, but we cannot manufacture a real blade of grass, which if you water it, it will grow. And if you, it reproduces, and you plant some grass and it will spread around on its own from soil. We cannot even manufacture soil, let alone grass. So everything that we see around us is an effect of a higher, superior authority. That is God. We call God, and many people, even scientists, call, God as nature. So that is the impersonal understanding. And we understand that the Brahman is the source, the all-pervading Brahman is the source of all material energy. Then, when you come closer, and that is what we will study today in the Dhyana Yoga chapter, when you perform, or when a yogi performs Dhyana Yoga to the final, most advanced level, then he is able to see Bhagawan. He is able to see the Lord, but he only sees one specific form of the Lord, not the varied forms of the Lord as Lord Ram, Krishna, Narasimha, not like that. Just the four-handed form of Lord Vishnu. That is what he sees. And that too, he sees that form through his heart. Now, it is not some kind of a imagination or a dream. One actually sees the Lord in the heart. And such a yogi, again, obviously, I don't have any experience of that. I'm just stating what I have read in the scriptures and from very senior devotees. I have heard that such a vision of Paramatma is extremely clear and different. One knows that this is something else. It's not just imagination. A very good example of this occurs in the case of Narada Muni in his previous life. I'm not sure how many of you know that entire episode. It is given in the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapters 4, 5, and 6, where Narada Muni in the previous life is a small child and goes through, certain tribulations. His mother passes away, and then he goes out in the search of absolute truth based on the guidance given by sages. And finally, after some time, he clearly sees for a very brief moment this vision of Lord in his heart. And then the episode continues, but that is what is being mentioned here, the second level, which is Paramatma. So Paramatma, that is why Paramatma, we say, is in the heart. And finally, the bhaktas or the devotees see the personal form of the Lord, the form that they are most attracted to, that they are completely devoted to, that form of the Lord they are able to actually interact with, actually see, and have direct interaction with, not just be able to see, but interact. And you can see so many examples of devotees that personally are able to interact with the Lord. Now, this is not limited to just Hanumanji or the Gopas and Gopis of Vrindavan. Even great saints in the modern age, in the 15th, 16th, all the way till the 20th century, have seen, or there are documented instances of them having seen the Lord. There is a documented instance of Srila Prabhupada also having one darshan of Lord Shri Krishna. So it's not something far out or something that happened thousands of years ago or only applies to Hanumanji or Prahlad. It happens even today. So these are the three levels, and the first one is called Brahman. The second one is called the Paramatma, which is the Vishnu form that one sees within the heart. And the third is Bhagawan in various forms, depending on the devotee's attraction or the devotion to a specific form. So these are the three levels. And today we will be going into Dhyana Yoga, where we will focus, or the end goal, the destination is for the Dhyana yogi to see Paramatma in the heart. So I thought this was a good time to give this description of the various levels of spiritual realization. And we will refer to this at various points in our spiritual journey of discussion in Bhagavad Gita. And you can refer back to this discussion if you want to get more get a review. Okay, so now we start with 6th chapter, the verses. So the first several verses, two verses of the 6th chapter are a summary of chapter 5 by Lord Shri Krishna. So I will just again, let me decide if I want to go through I'll just read the translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and one who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. He is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty." So there are two aspects here that are mentioned. One is anashrita. I'm kind of going into the verse now. So in the third line, you will see sa sannyasi cha yogi cha. So basically, there are two aspects mentioned, the sannyasi and the yogi. Sannyasi is referring to what is known as a karma sannyasi, and yogi is referring to as the nishkama karma yogi. So the nishkama karma yogi and a karma sannyasi are basically the same. That is what is being said. And what matters in both cases is renunciation in the mind, not renunciation of what. Renunciation of what matters less. What matters more is that actually one must be renounced in the mind or to the internal level. Renunciation of could be just of the fruits or of the activity and the fruits both. Obviously of the activity, and therefore there'll be no fruits. If there's no activity, there's no fruits. If there's no input, there is no output. And without what is also being said in the next verse, so the next verse is, what is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So, without sannyasa, again, of what? Whether it is of the activity itself or whether it is the fruits. Without sannyasa, nobody can become a yogi either. So basically, Lord Krishna is saying it in both ways, that the sannyasa or the yoga, or in other words, Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, are essentially the same, because the entire renunciation, whether of the fruits or the activity, first needs to, or foremost needs to, occur in the mind. There is no point in external renunciation of the fruits or the activities, and internally one continues to contemplate and salivate on the activity or the fruits. Now, in the rest of the Bhagavad Gita, this term yogi will have a broader meaning. The broader meaning of the word yogi will mean, or will take on the meaning of the core essence. The core essence means renunciation in the mind. Again, of what? Of that matters less, and what matters less is matter. Matter means material things. So material things should be completely deprioritized, whether it's material fruits or material action. It does not matter which material aspect we renounce, we must renounce material things and focus on the internal. So not just the details, what exactly are we renouncing, etc. And this fourth bullet on this slide is very important. It will help us to understand verse number 6.46 very nicely. That verse is one of the most complex and hard to understand verses in all of Bhagavad Gita. There are so many questions, or ways to interpret, but if you look at it with this understanding, 6.46 will be very easy to understand. So this was a quick summary of chapter 5, which has been covered by Lord Krishna in the first 2 verses. Now we start with Dhyana Yoga, and I have one slide which covers the essence of chapter 6. What are we trying to accomplish in chapter 6? So let me show that. Yeah, let me just keep the whole slide here. So this is the essence of chapter 6, or a large part of chapter 6, all the way till verse number 26. My goal today is to cover this entire section till 26. Let us see how successful we can be. So, once again, a revision. Either do Nishkama Karma Yoga, which is give up the fruits of action, or Karma Sannyasa Yoga, give up all action itself, including the fruits, therefore. So, one of the two, essentially both are the same, but Dhyana Yoga is pertaining to doing the second one, but do it completely and properly. And to do it completely or fully and properly, what we have to do is to focus the mind completely on what we will say on the self, and the process will be delineated in the verses from 11 to 19 in the 6th chapter. But completely focusing the mind on the Paramatma within the heart. And this process is also known as the 8-limbed process, or the Ashtanga Yoga process. And then one can completely control the mind all the way to the state of samadhi. And that is the end goal of Dhyana Yoga. And in that state, that end result, which is the state of samadhi, one sees the Paramatma in the heart, the Paramatma form in the heart. So, once again, chapter 6 is basically an extension of Karma Sannyasa Yoga taken to the extreme level of all the way up to samadhi through the process of Ashtanga Yoga, or 8-limbed yoga, which we will have a quick review of in the next couple of slides. Okay. So actually right here in this slide itself. So 6.3. So now this Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga is being described. Now Lord Krishna begins by describing two levels. What is known as Yoga Aruruksha and Yoga Arudha. Okay. So the beginner level, Yoga Aruruksha, and the advanced level, which is Yoga Arudha. So there are 8 limbs in this Ashtanga Yoga: Yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Now, Bhagavad Gita does not cover each of these in detail. These are also these are covered in great detail in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which also describes the process of yoga, but not as detailed in the Bhakti Marg, or in the path of Bhakti, as Bhagavad Gita describes. So, what we call as mainly as yoga are yoga asanas, the third limb, where we basically control basic bodily functions. So the ability, it's not about just stretching the muscles. That is the sort of the not even a part of the yoga asanas. Yoga asana is to stay. That's why you will not see in, I mean, if you go to a, I don't know, if you look at some YouTube video of some workout, there is a lot of activity. They'll ask you to, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have to, whatever you have, there's a lot of motion. In yoga asanas, there is no motion. Why is that? Because it is about controlling your senses, your external sense organs, your limbs, for example, and how to stay in a given state for a long period of time without falling off. So there are all these, even I did some physical therapy, and one of the things that, one of the aspects of physical therapy is, for example, to stand on one leg for 1 minute. And he told me, the physical therapist told me, that this creates sort of this, develops certain muscles, and is equivalent to doing some physical therapy where you have to keep moving a lot. So yoga asanas are all about controlling the senses, not moving the sense organs or the limbs. For doing that, the first 2 steps are yama and niyama. At a broad level, yama and niyama means rules and regulations, the do's and the don'ts. Yamas are the do's and niyamas are the don'ts. So you have to first change your lifestyle. So that is yama and niyama. Then controlling the body, which is yoga asanas. And then it goes into more advanced levels as pranayam, which is controlling the breathing or the controlling the breath. And then it goes into more advanced levels all the way, pratyahara and dharana, going into the state of dhyana, which is the state of meditation. Now, I think in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or Nectar of Devotion, we will cover more detail, in a more detailed way, the dhyana, the dharana and dhyana level. So I won't go into the details of that. And finally comes the state of samadhi. So samadhi means complete cessation of all action, including breathing at the highest level. So complete cessation of eating, drinking, and finally not even blinking your eyes, and even breathing is stopped at the final samadhi state. So 6.3 is talking about the first stage, which is yoga aruruksha. For one who is a neophyte, that is known as yoga aruruksha, arurukshor muner yogam. He is the neophyte in the eightfold yoga system. Work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. So in the second line or the third or the fourth lines, you will see yoga arhudasya tasya eva shamah karanam uchyate. So shamah means to calm down or to cease or to completely stop the material activities. So shamah applies to the karma karanam uchyate, or doing activities. So till the first 7 levels, You have to keep doing activities, but it is reducing gradually all the way till dhyana. In dhyana, all activities have reduced, and except breathing is going on. And of course, when you are not doing dhyana, you do some other activities, eating and drinking and whatever needs to be done, and focus back on dhyana. Then in samadhi, everything stops completely. That is the yoga arudha stage. Okay. Then, but the main thing is not just stopping these activities. Whether you are a yoga aruruksha or yoga arudha, it's not about just the activities or even breathing or eating or those things. In 6.4, a person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. So, what is the most important thing Lord Krishna is saying? That a real advanced yogi, and here also Lord Krishna says, Yoga Rudhas Tad Uchyate. Who is called a Yoga Rudha? In the last line, you will see that Yoga Rudhas Tad Uchyate means one is called a Yoga Arudha who basically is not performing activities for sense gratification. So again, it is the same meaning or the same understanding that it is all about the mind. One should control the mind and focus the mind or away from the material sense gratification and focus on spiritual progress. So that is the ultimate purpose. So two levels in summary have been described, Yoga Aruruksha and Yoga Arudha. And the focus is on minimizing external activity without losing focus on the internal consciousness, which is to get away from any kind of material sense gratification. So that is the summary of 6.3 and 6.4. Now, from 6.5 onwards, the focus on the mind. So it's all about the mind. What I have said here, it's all about the mind, controlling the mind. And that point is going to be hammered in 6.5 and 6.6. And these are two very important verses, often overlooked, or we go over it very quickly. So we will go over it in a little bit more detail to understand these two verses. So please pay attention. So how to reach that yoga arudha stage? So, and you hear, and it's a very poetic verse. So I will just read the verse. Uddhared atmana atmanam na atmanam avasadyate avasadayet atma eva hya atmano bandhur atma eva ripuratmanaha. So you will see this repetition of the word atmana several times. So the translation is, one must deliver himself with the help of the mind. Uddhared atmana atmanam. So what does it mean? Uddharet means uddhar karna. Uddhar means to uplift. So the soul must be uplifted by the mind. So please make sure you understand it. The soul must be uplifted. Today the soul is conditioned. We are all in the conditioned state, or most of us. And it must be uplifted by the mind. The mind has the capacity to uplift the soul. The mind, in the next line, na atmanam avasadayet. Avasadayet means to degrade, or the opposite of uplift. So the mind can also oppress or push down, you can think of, oppress the soul. This is a very important point. And then Atma eva hi atmano bandhur. So the word Atma and Atma, one of the Atma is being used for the mind and the other Atma is being used for the soul. So the mind is the bandhu or the friend of the soul. Atma eva ripuratmanaha. And mind, or you can say mind, can be the best friend of the soul, or the mind can be the best or the worst, you can say the worst enemy of the soul as well. And in the next verse, we will see in which case the mind is the friend and which case mind is the enemy. So the question is, in this, is mind our friend or is it our enemy? And in what case is it our friend and in what case it is our enemy? And the answer is given in the next verse, a controlled mind. There's a grammatical error, a controlled mind. The word the shouldn't be there. Just make a note of that. A controlled mind is a friend. So verse number 6, please understand this verse carefully as well. Bandhuratma atmanastasya yenatmana evatmana jitaha anatmanas tu shatrutve varteta atma eva shatruvat. So bandhuratma atmanas tasya, that the mind is the friend of the soul. And what kind of mind is the friend of the soul? Yena atma eva atmana jitaha. That kind of mind or that kind of soul which has conquered the mind. So atma atmana jitaha. So that kind of soul which has conquered over the mind. That's the understanding. And in the other case, anatmanas tu shatrutve. So tu means but, anatmana means one whose the soul has failed to conquer the mind, or failed to conquer means is that always at odds. Shatrutve means is always at odds. They are always at odds with each other. Varteta atma eva shatruvat. Such a mind always is an enemy of the soul. So basically the answer is that a controlled mind is a friend and a uncontrolled or an unconquered mind is the enemy. So what you should understand here is that there is a internal competition going on, or an internal, we are talking about friend and enemy here, isn't it? When do you have friends and enemies? When there is a competition or there is some kind of a conflict. And in conflicts, you have friends and you have enemies. So there is a conflict or a competition going on between the two as to who wins. And we are talking about winning and losing. Like the word was jitaha. So who wins? Jita means to win or to conquer. So this fight or this conflict is between the mind and the soul. Either the mind controls the soul or the soul controls the mind. Okay? A very good way to understand this. What does it mean here? What it means here, so a very good analogy here that I usually have given, again, that I have heard from my seniors and that I have shared a lot, is the example of a taxi driver and a passenger. So the passenger is like a soul and the taxi driver is like the mind. So the mind is the one that is navigating the soul through the material world. Now the soul wants to go in a certain direction or to a certain destination and tells the taxi driver, I want to go there. So today I am here in Portland, in Bethany, and I tell the taxi driver to take me to the airport. Now, if the taxi driver is my friend, or if he's friendly, he will obey my instructions. But if he is rogue, then he will take me somewhere else. And in that case, assuming that the taxi driver is very powerful, I will be a very unhappy, disappointed, and after a certain time, a complete victim of a passenger. So that is when the mind is very strong and it has completely controlled over the soul, that is like a very rogue powerful, inimical taxi driver who is trying to kidnap the soul. The soul wants to go somewhere, but the taxi driver is taking him somewhere completely else. Whereas, if the taxi driver is friendly, then the soul easily reaches. Of course, the soul doesn't need the mind. It can get off and start walking itself. But the mind becomes a friend. He can take the soul wherever he wants, faster, in a more comfortable way. So that is the real sort of the situation that we want to get to, where the soul is on a very happy journey through the material world with a controlled mind. But we do not have a controlled mind. Our minds are completely out of control. And in that case, we are suffering through the journey of this material world. So another very nice example. So in that case, the soul is basically a victim. I heard this in one of the classes. A very good another analogy is given between of like Mother Sita and Ravan. Mother Sita is like the soul when she was in captivity, and Ravana is like the uncontrolled mind. So Mother Sita wants to be united with her Lord Sri Ram. So just like the soul wants to go back to Krishna. And she's expressing that desire, but there is this Ravana who has completely oppressed and suppressed Mother Sita. And now she is helpless. She cannot overpower Ravan and just go and meet Lord Ram. So she is completely suppressed, she is victimized, and she is having a very miserable existence. But her internal desire has not changed. Her internal desire, which is suppressed, is to unite with her Lord. Similarly, the soul is pure and always has the desire to go back and unite with the Supreme Lord or the Paramatma. But the mind is a covering or is a wall that is preventing the soul from fulfilling its desire. It is taking the soul and it has captured all the faculties that can carry the soul back to Krishna, pretty much, which is all the material body. This mind has captivated and is taking the soul in a different direction. Because just like the driver, he owns the steering of the car, he owns all the controls, and the car will go wherever the driver wants, not where the passenger wants. The car is in the control. The driver has taken control of the car. If it was, yeah. So that is the understanding of these two verses. So these two verses basically, in summary, are saying that there is a constant competition or a conflict between the mind and the soul. And the soul wants to go in a certain direction. The mind can either take the soul there and make the journey very comfortable, very sweet. In that case, the mind is the friend. And in that case, the soul is the controller. He says, go right, go left, go here, go there. So the soul is in control, not the mind. And in the other case, the mind is in the control. The soul is expressing its desire, but the mind is ignoring it. And mind is taking the soul wherever the mind wants to go, wherever the mind desires, which is not aligned with the soul. So then the soul suffers. And in that case, the soul stays in the material world, keeps, wandering in the material world. So that is sort of the explanation of 6.5 and 6.6. Now, 6.7, another very beautiful verse. So what is the final or the end result of controlling the mind? So the end result is, okay, yes, we have a question by Raj Vidya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
In the previous discussions, you had mentioned that buddhi is strongest, and it kind of it is the only way that can take us on the right path. Buddhi, intelligence. So in this,
maybe misquoting but go ahead. I don't think I said buddhi is the strongest, but anyway, go ahead.
because that can kind of control the mind also. So here, why we are not considering buddhi at all, and directly mind is kind of overtaking everything.
Okay. So it is about the desires. The mind has its own desire, and the soul has certain desires. Like I mentioned, the soul's desire ultimately is to unite with Bhagawan. The mind's desire depends on its training, which way it has been trained through the conditioning. So the mind gets trained either to, you know, follow the desires of the soul or attune its own desires with that of the soul. So the mind can also want to unite with Krishna, or the mind can go towards sense gratification. And that is the function of its conditioning or its constant association or training, as we can say. All right. Now, I don't think I said that intelligence or buddhi is stronger than the mind. Intelligence is just a tool, it is a resource that can be used. Or you can think of it like intelligence tells this is right and this is wrong. So intelligence is that, is the, you can say, the force or tool. I may not be using the right word, but you understand intelligence means basically the capacity to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong, what is in my ultimate benefit and what is not in my ultimate benefit, also what is in my short term benefit and not in my short term benefit. For a diabetic person, my intelligence will tell you that my short term benefit is to eat this rasgulla. That will provide me some taste. Intelligence tells him that. And intelligence is the same one which tells him, but in the long term, it will be harmful. So intelligence is just giving inputs. All right. Just telling what is right and what is wrong, or being able to give a clear analysis of the pros and cons. The material world is full of dualities. That is the fundamental characteristic of the material world. You know that. Dualities, good, bad, rich, poor, white and black, whatever may be the case, happiness and distress, sukha, dukkha. That's his material world. Intelligence tells us if you do X, you will go this direction. If you do Y, you will go in this direction at a fundamental level. Basic level, it will always boil down to these kind of choices. Now, somebody has to make the choice, one of the two. Either you eat the rasgulla or you don't eat. You have only two choices, right? It's a mutually exclusive binary choice. That will come. Intelligence is just saying that here is the analysis. It's like the, the technical person presenting the options to the CEO. Hey, if you do this, here are the things. If you do this, here is what will happen. Ultimate decision maker is the CEO. Okay.
So CEO is the mind, you're saying.
That depends on who is more powerful.
Okay. I'm sorry if I may add here, Prabhuji, like shloka number 3.42. Here we are saying Indriyani, the working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So,
Yeah, okay, fine. So that is where you were saying that intelligence is higher than the mind.
yeah.
And the way to understand that is that intelligence cannot be fooled by the mind. The mind ultimately is the one who is the decision maker, which means given all the possible analysis, ultimately he may still choose something which is not in his benefit. But the intelligence will never lie. Every criminal, every sinful person knows that when he is, even the cigarette smoker, it's a very basic thing, even though if he has lung cancer, he may choose to smoke the cigarette, but he absolutely clearly knows that intelligence is telling him that this is going to be long-term harmful. You choose, you want short-term happiness or long-term happiness. This person may choose short-term happiness and smoke the cigarette. He may choose long-term happiness and quit smoking. So the way to understand that is that intelligence is never, will always present the correct analysis, now the mind has to make the choice. Okay?
Hare Krishna.
So, we are back to verse number 7. So, what is the main result of controlling the mind? So, jita atmanaha. That's how where verse number 7 starts. One whose atmanaha means mind has been jita, has been conquered, or the mind has, is completely aligned with the soul. Jita atmanaha prashantasya. And the mind is completely prashantasya, means completely calm. And what it means is friendly to the soul. Paramatma samahitaha. He approaches, or he is able to approach Paramatma. So for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul or Paramatma is already reached, for he has attained tranquility or prashantasya. And the effect of that attainment is that one completely rises above the duality of material nature. That is there in the next two lines. Shitoshana sukha dukkheshu tatha man apamanayoh. So one is completely able to rise above. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So what it means is that one is able to completely transgress, completely go beyond all material dualities. Material dualities are of two types, bodily and mental. And here both are given. First is Shita Ushana, which is bodily, heat and cold. And Sukha Dukha. Now, Sukha Dukha is generic. It can apply to Shita Ushana. If you are feeling warm, you may be happy. If you are feeling cold, you may be sad. But look at the next one, Tatha Man Apamanayoha. That is strictly at the level of the mind. Honor and dishonor. I say one bad word to you, and you may think, oh my God, this person is such a rascal. Or, there will be immediate reaction. So man apaman is all in the mind. Whereas a person who doesn't care about what others are telling or talking about him, or how they are relating with him, then there is no man apaman. One doesn't take any offense. So that is at the level of the mind. And also it gives sukha and dukkha. So at the fundamental level, and this we have studied in previous chapter also, that one is able to transgress the dualities of the mind when one is situated, or when one has performed advanced level of yoga. The main point of this verse is Jita Atmanaha Prashantasya Paramatma Samahitaha. Very clearly it is being said that one is able to see the Paramatma. In the heart is not mentioned here, that will come later. But the fact that one approaches Paramatma is very, very directly and clearly mentioned here. And that is the understanding that this is why this is important. That's the understanding that we were having. Now, mind you, this is a good point to clarify that this entire chapter of Dhyana Yoga is not talking about the highest level of realization. The highest level of realization is the Bhagawan realization, which will come as a result of Bhakti Yoga, not Dhyana Yoga. And towards the end of chapter 6, Lord will say that after many, many lifetimes, Aneka Janma Ante, after the end of many lifetime, one finally attains success. In the 7th chapter, the Lord will ultimately say that even after performing many lifetimes of this Jnana Yoga and Dhyana Yoga, one ultimately has to perform my bhakti. So if you see the story of Dhruva, which is that second picture that I have shown here, both the stories are of Dhruva. In the first picture, when he is very adamant that I want to see Lord Narayan, because his mother told him that only Lord Narayan can solve your problems. He wanted to sit in his father's lap. I think all of you know the story of Dhruva. And he had a stepmother, and she denied him to sit on his father's lap. Now, for a small child, that is, the whole world comes crashing on him. And he goes to his mother. The father was the king. He had two wives. One wife was Suniti, and Suruchi is the other one. Suruchi is the bad one. Suniti is the good one. Dhruva is the son of Suniti. But the king happens to love Suruchi more. So she denies Dhruva to sit in his father's lap. And the father also doesn't say anything. That hurts him so much. He goes running to his mother. The mother says, only Lord Vishnu can solve your problems. He is so determined. He goes into the forest, meets his guru, Narada Muni, who tries to convince him to go back. He doesn't, budge. Then Narada Muni gives him a mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And then Dhruva performs Dhyana Yoga. The entire episode of Dhruva described in Srimad Bhagavatam is a practical demonstration of Dhyana Yoga, as in the 6th chapter, which we will see. And at the end of that process, Lord Vishnu comes out of his heart. He first sees Lord Vishnu in his heart as Paramatma. And then he comes out, and because this small boy, and this will kind of be clarified in Nectar of Devotion or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, because the sole reason why Paramatma came out and showed his Bhagawan form, it's like you are trying to go and see the US Capitol, and the president walks out to greet you. You went there just to see the building, but you got a bonus. So similarly, the Lord came out of his heart as Lord Vishnu, and directly he got the darshan of Bhagawan. The reason was, what is the reason? Anybody can tell? Those who have studied in detail the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Because he wouldn't open his eyes.
Okay, but what was the core reason?
Can you repeat the question, Prabhuji?
Even though he performed Dhyana Yoga, and the end result is to see the Paramatma in your heart, how come he saw Bhagavan? Why did he get that bonus? No? Shamlila Mataji?
Prabhuji, was it because he got the mantra from Narada Muni, who's a devotee of Bhagwan, and that mercy flowed in?
Exactly. You should have. So why you weren't saying that?
I was wondering if that was it.
Yes. So in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the second wave of the Eastern Ocean, it is mentioned that this is, or the potency of coming in contact with a pure devotee is mentioned. So because he came into contact with Narada Muni, he got this extra bonus. One can get the mantra, even his mother could have given him the mantra, or he could have learned the mantra in the school or whatever, but because he got it from such a pure devotee, one of the purest possible, Narada Muni, he got the darshan of Bhagavan himself. Anyway, so the point is that first he got the darshan of the Lord in his heart as Paramatma. And that was because of his Dhyana Yoga effort that he put. So, but then Bhakti, sort of the effects of Bhakti took over, because Bhakti flows from, and the more powerful Bhakta you come in contact with, the more bonus you get. And Narad Muni was a pretty powerful as in pure Shuddha Bhakta that he came in contact with, and he got a very, very beautiful result out of that. So anyway, Bhakti Yoga is the highest because it leads us directly to Bhagavan. We don't stay limited to Paramatma. So that is, I just wanted to bring that up here, that chapter 6 is talking about Paramatma, but there is still a higher level. Okay, what are some of the other things, the secondary results that are covered in the next two verses, 6.8 and 6.9? The secondary results, which are already mentioned. First is to be able to transgress or go beyond the dualities, and the mind becomes completely calm. The Atma, the mind, becomes prashantasya, becomes completely calm. So then in the 8th verse, so, it is not disturbed by Shita, Ushana, Sukha, Dukkha, Man, Apman, etc. And then the sort of a more vivid description is being given. 6.8 talks about the cessation of dualities at the bodily level. So 8 says, a person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi. Okay, so you see here, Yukta Itya Uchyate Yogi in the 3rd line. So he is just called a yogi. Okay, so a yogi is one who sees what? Sama-loṣṭrāśma-kāñcanaḥ. So, sama-loṣṭrāśma-kāñcanaḥ. Loṣṭra means a stone. Ashma means a part of a stone, which is like a pebble. And kanchan means what? Gold. So, one sees equally pebbles, stones, and gold. And then the 9th verse is when one sees at the mind level. So, did we read the translation? A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi when he is fully satisfied by the virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. These are the first 2 lines. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutastho Vijitindriyaha Yukta Ityasya Uchyate Yogi sama-loṣṭrāśma-kāñcanaḥ. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. A person is considered still further advanced. So now there is a level, and now we see the mind. When he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, neutral mediators, envious friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. So there is a whole description here that, but in essence, sama, mitra, ari, you will find at least these 2 words. Mitra means friend, ari means foe. So sama is seeing equally all these people, all these entities. And such a person is more advanced. So conquering the mind, not just at the bodily level. Seeing stones and gold is at a bodily level, but at the mind level is higher. And that is why sama buddhir vishishyate. So vishishyate means is better or is more advanced. So such a yogi is more advanced. So basically it comes back to controlling the mind at the mind level. And they say, sometimes it says, what's the saying there? Words hurt more than arrows or something like that. So, you can see here that, an arrow will hurt your body, but the words hurt the mind or the heart or the ego. And words hurt more than the arrow. I think there's some saying like that. So controlling the mind is the most important. Then the next question, which is answered in the next 10 verses, is how, the process. Okay. So the process is described in the next 10 verses. We will go over this quickly, or whatever, relatively quickly. So the first thing, of course, is to control the mind. Okay, so that is a given. Plus, we will see some important things in the next 10 verses, and we will go through these. So the first one is basically at the physical level. What is the significance of secluded place? Secluded place means physically disconnecting yourself from all material distractions. Okay. So, in each of these items, we will also see now, Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna also has introduced Bhakti Yoga already into the understanding. So I will mention or refer to what it means for a bhakta. But in the literal sense, it is to go and sit in a secluded place like a forest or a cave in the mountains. But for a bhakta or for a bhakti marg, what it means, I will mention that as well. So it says, verse number 10, a transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So this verse is basically describing why secluded place, because we are disconnecting ourselves physically from various potential distractions, from feelings of possessiveness or from things that can take our mind away from engaging in relationship with the Supreme Self. Now, for a devotee, you don't have to go to a secluded place. You can go to a devotional place. So it may not be secluded, but it is a place where material things are not emphasized. There may be material things. There will be the Lord, there will be a nice temple, there will be prasad, there will be devotees, there will be singing and chanting. All those things will be there, but it is not something for material sense gratification. So going to a holy place is as good as going to a secluded place in the path of bhakti. Then 11 and 12. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. So, again, now the first verse was talking about getting away from something. The second, these two verses 11 and 12 are talking about getting to something. So get away from the various distractions of the material world and get to a place, to a certain place, and that which place to get to is being described here. Should lay kusha grass, and these are to cover it with deer skin, soft cloth. So the point here is kusha grass and deer skin prevent the sort of the insects and snakes and other things to come close. So that is the sort of the Vedic sort of way to create an environment where one can sit and focus the mind without distractions. The seat should neither be too high nor too low, and one should be sitting in a sacred place or a quiet place. Now, for a devotee, what this means is that what should you go to and what you should go in the midst of devotees. You should find a place where there are other devotees. And what are they doing? They are either chanting in front of the Lord. There is either a deity of the Lord or there is a saint who is speaking Bhagavad Katha and the devotees are listening to it. That should be the focus of a devotee. So one should find a place where any of the limbs of bhakti, whether it is Bhagavat Shravan, whether it is taking darshan of the deities, whether it is some kirtan going on, any of such things are going on in the association of devotees, one should spend his time, one should go to such a place and stay there for as long as possible and focus on whatever activity is going on, whether it is Bhagavat Shravan, Murti Sevana, etc., etc. Okay, verse number 13 and 14. So, appropriate body posture. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. So that is where one should look at. Now that is externally, but all these, so that even the blinking of the eye, the movement of the eyeballs should not happen here and there. So even if there is some activity happening, one should focus the eyes at the tip of the nose, so that you don't get distracted. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Now, Sri Krishna is introducing a little bit of me, because Paramatma and Bhagawan are one and the same. But again, coming back, the focus is the bodily posture and focusing the mind, ekagra manaha, on me within the heart. Now, mat chitta and mat paraha. So mat chitta clearly means me within the heart. So chitta is the heart, or heart and mind are kind of synonymous. But mat chitta, me in the heart, and mat paraha means taking complete shelter of me. So here Lord Krishna is saying, focus on the Paramatma. The external, the eyes should be on the tip of the nose. Internally, the focus should be on the Paramatma. For a devotee, what does it mean? For a devotee, it means fully focusing on the Kirtan or the Bhagavatam that is going on, or whatever is the devotional service that is going on, fully focusing on that. Or if one is doing some seva for other Vaishnavas, for the Lord, then fully focusing on the seva with the seva bhava, not whether others are looking at me, or when will, I get better seva. I am doing this seva, but that seva is better. When will I get rid of this and do something else? All the seva of Bhagawan, whether Hanumanji is serving Bhagawan by throwing big rocks, or the squirrel is serving the same Lord by wagging its tail and taking some sand particles. So whether it is a particle of sand or a huge mountain, Lord Ram is equally pleased with both Hanumanji and the squirrel. So big seva, small seva does not make a difference. The internal mood makes the difference. So the mood of the squirrels, this is a nice pastime in Ramayana, when the Lord blessed all the squirrels, because he said that the mood of the squirrels is no different than the mood of Hanumanji. They are as much my devotees. So internal mood should be on Bhagawan whenever one is serving the Lord in bhakti. Okay. So that is 13 and 14. Then 15th verse, the end result. Thus practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God, or the abode of Krishna, by cessation of material existence. So two levels are mentioned here, nirvana paramam and mat samsthanam adhi gacchati. So nirvana paramam. So this is the highest nirvana. So there is a very sort of a subtle difference that is being brought out here, that through Jnana Yoga, one attains the the highest nirvana, or what is known as the Brahma nirvana, which we discussed in chapter 5, the impersonal liberation or the impersonal realization of the absolute truth, what is known as the Brahman realization, which we discussed today in the beginning. And then mat samsthanam. What is this mat samsthanam? And in the translation, Srila Prabhupada writes as the kingdom of God. So this mat samsthanam, when one attains the Paramatma realization, one attains the Vaikuntha planets, one of the Vaikuntha planets. So one goes beyond the Brahman realization, one actually goes into the spiritual world, into one of the Vaikuntha planets, where the predominant deity is the four-handed Lord Vishnu. There are many, many, many Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual world, not just one. The Vaikuntha planets in which this Dhyana yogi gets entry into is every Vaikuntha planet has a presiding deity. For example, we say Goloka Vrindavan, or Ayodhya Dham, or there are many other Vaikuntha planets, Narsingha Dham. So the presiding deity of Goloka Vrindavan is Lord Krishna. That of Ayodhya Dham is Lord Ram. There is Dwarka Dham. Now again it is Lord Krishna, but Lord Krishna as the king. There are multiple dhams which have Krishna as the presiding deity. One is where Lord Krishna is the king. There is Mathura Dham as well, where the Lord is like the ruler or the sort of the owner, not the king yet, but he is the most respected entity. So that king aspect, the kingly aspect is not there, but the Aishwarya, the great Lord, there is nobody greater than him. In Goloka Vrindavan, the Lord is not even great. He is the smallest. Everybody, thrashes him left and right. He's the punching bag, so to say, of all. But even though he is the punching bag, he is the sweetest. Everybody is crazy in love with him. If he goes out of sight for even 1 second, the devotees are like, as if they are being asphyxiated or whatever, somebody is taking out their life air from them. So, but when he is there in front of them, they are all just, playing with him in a very not with any understanding that he is God. So that is Golok Vrindavan, then Mathura Dham, Dwarka Dham, Ayodhya Dham. So many of them are there. But these are all for those who follow the path of bhakti with a specific form of the Lord whom they have performed bhakti. The Vaikuntha Dhams, where the presiding deity is simply the four-handed Vishnu now. Bhakti to Lord Narayan is also possible. That is not included in these Vaikuntha Dhams. Obviously, one can do very deep bhakti for Lord Vishnu himself, for Lord Narayan. So those Vaikuntha Dhams are separate. But these ones are where the presiding deity is simply the four-handed Vishnu where one only is able to access the form of the Lord, not his personal interactions. Okay, so that is the understanding one should get from mat samsthanam abhigacchati. Goes to my abode, mat samsthanam. That is the Vaikuntha planets. Okay, so that destination is being mentioned. Now, in 16 and 17, how to begin? So one can ask, how should I begin? So the first thing is to start with the body. So 16 and 17 is saying where to start. So here we get a sense of Yama and Niyama. Even though the name is not there, if you remember the Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi. So Yam and Niyam is being described in these two verses. To start with the body. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little. So both yam and niyam are there. Eat little, that is a do. Don't eat too much, that is a don't. Sleep adequately is a do. Don't sleep too much is a don't. So you can see rules and regulation. Don't, do's and don'ts are included here. Similarly, in 17, he who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all pains by practicing the yoga system. So again, this is referring to the more advanced stages of the yoga system to regulate it to, so that will come in 18. So this is 16 and 17 is saying first regulate the body at the bodily level and then go and regulate the mind. If you cannot regulate even the body, which also includes some regulation of the mind, you cannot regulate the body without regulating the mind. But at least first regulate the body at the bodily level. Then regulate the mind, which will include things like being able to tackle with honor and dishonor and so on. So 18 talks about the mind. When a yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. So, regulating the mind is to curb the desires, all material desires. should continue to be or should be curbed, and to steady the mind, make the mind steady. Okay, so that is covered in the 19th verse. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. So the mind is steady, just like an unwavering flame of a lamp. So a very steady flame, that's how one's mind should be steady, and it means without any material desires. The desires are ones which make the mind unsteady, because then you go about trying to fulfill your desires, and sometimes the desires are fulfilled, sometimes they are not, and that flickers the mind. So that is till the 19th verse. Now 20 to 23, 4 verses are describing the state of samadhi. So this was described in a more physical way in verse numbers 5.27 and 28, where it was about not even blinking the eyebrows or the eyelids, and no eating, no drinking, no breathing, etc. So similarly, 20 to 23 is describing the state of samadhi. So what are the various aspects we will see? The mind is completely controlled. So the mind is completely steady, is purified of all material desires. No material desires are there in the mind anymore. And therefore, even there may be some miseries for such a person, the mind is completely unwavered or unaffected by the miseries. Now, for a devotee, the mind is completely controlled because the mind is always attached or thinking of Krishna, or how we can serve Krishna, or how we can serve the devotees. And therefore, all these things, serving Krishna or devotees, is not material. So it is purified of all material desires and unwavered by miseries. And when one's goal is to serve Krishna, then by definition, there cannot be any material miseries, because one understands that success or failure in one's efforts are also given by Krishna. The ability to perform effort and the result all belong to Krishna. So if success doesn't come, no problem. That was Krishna's desire. My job is to continue to keep serving. So one does not take any success or failure to heart. One considers both of those as what Krishna desires, for ultimately for my benefit. One thinks that something is there for my benefit. So that is the mood of the devotee. There is this beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam, which I have repeated many times, Tatte nukampam susamikshamano bhunjan evatma kritam vipakam yad vag vapurbhir hridayam vidadham namaste. Hrid vag vapurbhir vidadham namaste jivet yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. So what it means is that tatte anukampam susamikshamano, that one considers that, or it is the great mercy of the Lord, whatever is happening, and one is waiting patiently for the Lord to execute his plan. Then tatte anukampam susamikshamano evat bhunjan evatma kritam vipakam. And one bhunjan means continues to endure, continues to receive whatever is happening by the Lord's arrangement in his life. And if some misery comes, evatma kritam vipakam, he thinks I must have done some bad deeds in my past. Therefore, Lord is giving me some kind of reaction. I will just tolerate. I will not ask the Lord for any clemency or any pardon. I will tolerate the results of my bad deeds. And hrid vag vapurbhir vidadham namaste. And while he is doing this or tolerating any miseries, if they come, one does not leave the shelter of the Lord, or the seva, service of the Lord. Hrid vag vapurbhir. Hrid, heart. Vak means words, and vapu means body, BMW. Through BMW, one is vidadham namaste. One is continuing to serve the Lord, vidadham namaste. Jivetayo, and like this he continues to live with this consciousness, jivetayo. And the result is mukti pade sadaya bhag. Such a person is the most deserving for liberation from this material world, and simply go to the feet of the Supreme Lord. So this is the mood of a devotee, and you can apply that to this state of samadhi. A devotee operates in that, according to that verse. This is Canto 10, chapter 14, verse number 8. That is the state of samadhi for a devotee. What is being described here is the state of samadhi for a dhyana yogi, not a bhakta. So, and the intelligence can access the consciousness, which means the intelligence gets the power of discrimination from the Paramatma. So intelligence is in contact with the Paramatma. Today, the intelligence is, Paramatma is speaking, but intelligence is clouded. And because of its clouded nature, it is making analysis. It is providing a wrong analysis to the mind. So a clouded intelligence may say, it's okay, you can eat. Even if you have diabetes, or even if you have lung cancer, one cigarette will not make a difference. So in some way, the intelligence also loses its power of discrimination to a certain extent. But when it is fully in contact with Paramatma, then it is providing the perfect answers. And the soul is fully satisfied and happy in this case, unlike in the case of a contaminated or a conditioned mind, the soul is unhappy. So this is the summary of these 4 verses. I'll read the translation and you can follow it in the book. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is the actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. Okay. All right. Now comes a very important section. So we are almost coming to the end of today's discussion. So we are a little bit ahead of schedule. So that's good. Yes, question from Radhatmika Mataji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, and just wanted to understand, there is a parallel that we are drawing between Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 steps of 8 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, and the Bhakti Marg. Is that like I mean, although the destinations are different, I understand that, but there's a parallel Bhakti Marg with the 8
Which
limbs.
I am describing, yes, and Srila Prabhupada is doing the same in his purports, yes. So, question?
So question is the way we sit, the way we breathe, is there a parallel in Bhakti as well?
Yes, there is a parallel. And so first of all, the parallel is not evident from the verses of Bhagavad Gita, but one can ask that how to apply Dhyana Yoga into Bhakti. I have been saying this from the beginning. One of the purposes of reading Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Dhyana Yoga is to understand or learn how we can apply this to Bhakti. So you asked a good question, like the sitting posture and so on. How do we apply it in Bhakti? Now, in Bhakti, we don't have to. Now, a person who is completely in samadhi, he doesn't sleep. Whereas this section of Bhagavad Gita is, or Dhyana Yoga, is talking about sleep, but that is for the beginner. If you see the slides, I put it there. How to begin. Start with regulating the body, Yama and niyama. Okay, so that is the beginning stages. One should sleep properly and all that. In bhakti, you don't have to transgress sleep at the highest level. In Ashtanga Yoga, you transgress sleep completely. In bhakti, the way you can think of how to sit properly is to have adequate amount of sleep, so that when you are doing your japa, your kirtan, you're sitting in a class, you're doing seva, you are alert. Your consciousness is not clouded. So your body is rested and you are fresh, and you get up, you are able to get up in the morning. One of the things, when say we have to do japa in Brahma Muhurt, oh, for 90% of the people, getting up in Brahma Muhurt is a big problem. Brahma Muhurt, you can say it is 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I mean, Brahma Muhurt has a specific definition, 45 minutes before sunrise, till 45 minutes after sunrise. That 90 minutes is called Brahma Muhurt. I will just say Brahma Muhurt, let us say get up early in the morning. What is it? What is the secret to getting up early in the morning? Is early to bed. Early to bed, early to rise. What is it? It keeps a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. So early to bed is the most important part. So for a devotee, what it means is having an adequate amount of rest. You can say that that is the yama and niyam he needs to follow, and make sure that his body is well rested. And then when he gets up, is very fresh and alert, and is able to engage in bhakti yoga, whichever limb, whether he's doing japa, or he's listening to a class, or he's doing some deity seva. Sometimes, when you're doing some seva on the altar, you have to be very alert. I'll give you a very simple example. You have to take, for example, the arati and do it 7 times, 4 times, 2 times, 3 times, and then 7 times. Like this, you have to do. When you're doing 7 times, internally some counting is going on. Then you forget, Arey, I did 6 or 5 or 7. You're not, then you start again. Oh, I forgot. And then I have to do 7 more, because the mind is not conscious, is not alert. Of course, in japa or listening to class, it's very evident. You will see sometimes in the class you are sitting and you hear some loud snoring from next to you. So then you give a nudge to the person to wake up. Or in japa, it happens every time, you're doing japa and then, you doze off, because that is the last thing you keep in the day. I'm guilty of this, doing japa at like midnight, because I kept postponing it throughout the day. So these are not healthy practices. So sitting in a correct posture, being alert in the mind, all these apply to bhakti yoga. Now, technically japa should be done sitting up, cross-legged, sitting on the floor. I cannot sit cross-legged, so I sit on the chair, but sometimes the chair should not be like your recliner chair. So, you don't kind of doze off. These days, all these, in Costco, you will find these $600, $700 chairs, which are like very ultra comfortable. So they are designed to make you go to sleep. So those should not be the chairs in which you should sit and do japa. You should sit and do japa in a moderately comfortable chair. And I would personally want to equate it to have a deer skin soft cloth. It's not written that you should sit on, cold stone, rough stone. No. In Dhyana Yoga also, Lord Krishna is giving this instruction with a deer skin soft cloth on kusha grass. There is some level of arrangement that you should make. So I hope you can, these are my thoughts on drawing this parallel to bhakti.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes. Ramya Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I had a basic question for a beginner like us who's just into this path. Even for Nishkama Karma Yoga, we need to control the mind from material desires. And we are talking about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga as different paths. But I see it as to start with something, we start with curbing the desires on material level and it's more practical. So I see it as more in sequential process rather than parallel paths. Is that right, or should it be looked at it differently?
So you're asking the question at almost the right time. So the reason I say that is because very soon we are going to start with chapter 7, which is Bhakti Yoga. So all this while, whatever we have discussed, 6 chapters, or we are about to finish, or today we will cover half of 6th chapter, next time we will complete it. So all this while we have been discussing the first 6 chapters, and bhakti is a very small part. But for most of us, wherever we are in this, today's world of Kali Yuga, whether you are in India, whether you are in the West, the best process is to start with bhakti. One should not consider it a sequential process that first I will simply control the mind and then I will do bhakti, or I will control my attachments and desires and then the mind, and then bhakti will come later. So bhakti is to be started in the beginning itself, and as a process of bhakti, controlling the mind is going to be an integral part of it. For example, eating prasadam. Now on day 1, you may not eat prasadam always. But whenever you are offered prasadam to eat, you don't question it, you don't reject it. It may not be what you wanted to eat. Whatever is being offered to the Lord is coming out as prasad, and you have the choice to have that or reject it and go and have something else. It takes some control of mind to say, no, this is the prasad of the Lord. Now, sometimes the prasad is itself very good. There may be gulab jamuns and pudis and pakoras, and then, you are like, you can say, oh, today is my lucky day, and you will like overeat. But even when the prasad is just very simple dal and rice and no sabji and no sweets or whatever may be the case, you accept it with full love and with full bhava that this is the prasad of the Lord, and I'm getting this opportunity in this life to have it. How many people out of the 8 billion have this opportunity? So with that bhava, you accept, and it takes some control of the mind to do that. Then, for example, to observe Ekadashi, when Ekadashi day arrives, which arrives twice in a month, so 14 days technically, roughly 15 days or whatever, once in 2 weeks. Then on Ekadashi day, you stop all other nonsense activities. Let's say, if today is Ekadashi, I'm, let's say, whatever, I am not going to do certain things. If it's my favorite TV serial day, I'm going to skip that. Instead, I'm going to do some Nam Jap of the Lord. Or if you're already doing, let's say, 15 minutes of Nam Jap, on Ekadashi day, you do 30 minutes. That takes controlling of the mind. But so I hope you get the point. Whatever controlling of mind that one is doing, it is towards an act of bhakti. Act of bhakti is not natural for any of us, or for 99.9. Some people I have seen, the moment they introduce to bhakti, they catch on to it as if like, we will cover that in the later half of 6th chapter, why that happens. How some people immediately take to bhakti, but for most of us, it's a drag. It takes controlling the mind. So mind control is required even in bhakti, but it is not so severe that you have to, eat once a day, and then after many years or some years of practice, you eat once a week. How many people can do that? Even the most advanced bhakta in bhakti yoga, you can continue to eat 2 or 3 times a day. Nobody is going to stop. The only thing is you eat prasad instead of unoffered food, which is, it's non-sattvic or so many other things. So eat prasad with full bhava. You spend your time not with nonsense people talking about politics or sports. You continue to talk to people. You don't have to go live in a cave or in the forest. You live among devotees. You find a circle of devotees where you can get a chance to interact with them, talk about Krishna. You share your experiences and realizations and problems. They share theirs. You help each other in their happiness, moments of happiness, moments of sorrow. And everything is, your whole circle is among devotees. So you mold your life in a way that it is centered around Krishna. So all this requires all the aspects of karma yoga, jnana yoga. Jnana yoga means you engage in not about, first of all, not about mundane jnana, how artificial intelligence or chat GPT works, but not even impersonal Brahman jnana. You obtain bhakti jnana through Srimad Bhagavatam, through Bhagavad Gita. You engage your mind in absorbing yourself in these texts. So that is jnana, karma. Dhyana means doing your japa very properly. So all of these can be there are things that you can start pretty much in your first, I would say, for some people in the first week of bhakti. For somebody who's slow, definitely in the first 3 months. If one is serious about bhakti, within first 3 months, one should begin spending at least 1 or 2 hours per day in activities of bhakti. And that requires controlling the mind, giving up some sense desires, and engaging in all three, karma yoga, jnana yoga, and dhyana yoga. All of these things are included in bhakti. And one should start with that on day one, first day. And we will start the discussion on bhakti from 7th chapter onwards.
Yeah, thank you. The relationship helps to understand that these are prerequisites or can be considered as prerequisites. And
There are no prerequisites. The point I'm trying to make is there are no prerequisites.
yeah.
As one steps on the journey of bhakti, then one begins some level of mind control, sense control, doing some reading, curbing certain types of desires. Starts could be with eating habits, changing their lifestyle, changing their friends circle over a period of time, and like this, making progress in bhakti.
I was thinking it's a prerequisite, but now I get it that it's not needed. It naturally occurs as it
It
gets.
naturally occurs. Some things you can do purely internally in your life, like doing some nama jap. You can start on day one, and nobody else needs to know. So it's very personal. What you eat at home, at least, is very personal. How you pray, or what you do, whatever you call as your prayer time, is also very personal. So all these things you can continue to, or you can start on day one. So the best thing is to get connected with a guide, with somebody who can guide you on give you like a pretty much like a doctor's prescription. One tablet in the morning, one in the evening, this one this gives you a prescription. So beginner level. And you start doing those things, and it will require some control of the mind, giving up something else that you want to do, giving up some material desires. And Bhakti Yoga will start on day one. Okay. All right. Anything else was there? Okay. So let's complete one more topic today. We have 10 more minutes left. And that will be a good logical breakpoint for the next class. So, okay, so we discussed the state of samadhi. What is this? dealing with setbacks. So when one is performing Dhyana Yoga, and again, this applies to Bhakti as well, what to do and how to deal with setbacks. So when you are trying to focus the mind, Dhyana Yoga, coming back to Dhyana Yoga, is all about controlling or focusing the mind. So the mind wavers, the mind goes away. Very soon we will see that it is said mind is like a monkey, keeps jumping around. We cannot let the mind be still at one place. So these three verses talk about how to deal with setbacks, because wherever we talk about controlling the mind, we have to talk about troubleshooting. In any user guide, there is troubleshooting page, right? What to do when things go wrong or don't go as planned. That is called troubleshooting. So this is the troubleshooting verses for Dhyana Yoga. So what happens when the biggest trouble that happens with the mind is that it goes away, it wanders away without even our knowing. That is the important point. But there comes a point in time when we realize, oh, it has gone away. Okay? I will tell you to try this out. Now, many of you may be doing japa on your japa mala. Okay? But when you don't have japa mala in your hand, let us say, you are driving or you are showering, taking a shower or whatever, you are brushing your teeth or whatever else you are doing, where you are not when you are working or when you are doing something else, studying for your tests. So like this, when you're doing, just in your mind, take the name of Krishna, whether it is Hare Krishna Mahamantra you are chanting, just in your mind, or just very simple saying Krishna, 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 Krishna. So you start with the intention that Prabhuji said in the class, do this. Start with that intention, oh, I have to do this exercise. Take it as an exercise. Very soon, after some time, you will realize, oh, when did that stop? I began that exercise and I don't even know when it stopped. My mind went away to, oh, today I have to, do that thing at 2 o'clock. Oh, I sent that email, the reply has not yet come. Let me check if, or whatever, or maybe what will the reply come? I have sent an email. Will they accept or deny? Or I applied for this job. What will it come? Accept or reject? Whatever the case may be, there will be a time you will realize, oh, the mind went away. I started off with that exercise and now I lost track of it. That is the time. In between, you were wandering. That's like a unconscious wandering. But there will be a moment when you will realize that it has gone away. The point is, the last bullet is saying, bring it back. At that point, the moment you realize that it has gone away, then you bring it back. Say, oh, what am I doing? Come back to Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Or Krishna, 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 Shri Krishna, Shri Krishna, Shri Krishna, whatever you have decided. Again, it will wander away. Then you may lose track when it wandered away. But the moment you realize, oh, what happened again? I was supposed to be taking the name and it wandered away. Then at that moment, you bring it back. You start again. Another option can be that when you realize that it has gone away, you say, I'll keep that exercise away for some time. Let me continue to think what I have to do today evening. What is the plan? Which friends should I call? Whatever may be the case. If you continue to think, then you are letting your mind, you are being driven by the mind. The mind took you away to your friends or to your whatever evening pastime. Now you have chosen to go along with your mind, isn't it? You said that for the next 15 minutes, I will take the name of Krishna. But mind took you away, and now when you realized that you have been taken away, instead of you bringing the mind back, you start following the mind. Are you following what I'm saying? Consciously. It happens. Unconsciously, don't blame yourself. Oh, why did the mind take me away? No, that is its job. You have to be determined. Let's see who will win today. Mind can take me away as many times as it wants. I will bring it back same number of times. I will not follow the mind. Are you following what I'm saying? This is a very important part. If you have understood this, you will understand these 3 verses at a level where you can practically apply it in your life. Okay? So you bring the mind back and you do this exercise or at various levels. For example, if you are washing the pots in the temple, you start off with washing with full feeling, I am doing it for Krishna, the bhava aspect. You start, I have to wash this pot so that if Krishna by chance 0.00000000001% chance is there that he may come and check how nicely I have washed the pot, then the answer should be yes, very good quality I have washed. With that feeling, with that mood, you wash. Okay? And then somehow you get into the mood of quickly I have to do. Why did the people who cooked couldn't they pay more attention? This got burnt. Had they closed the stove sooner or on time, this would not have burnt. So many problems. First of all, devotees had to eat burnt prasad. Now I have to wash burnt pots. Whatever, the mind can take you away. Suddenly you bring the mind back. No, maybe this is a test of Krishna, how much I can keep my mind on him. So he gave me a burnt pot today. Let me wash it nicely. So you are able to control the mind. Even during your seva, this is a higher level. Just taking the name is, you can do it right now, today after the class. Then later on, in whatever sankalpa, whatever activity you took on as to focus your mind on, mind will take you away, you bring it back. Mind will take you away, you bring it back. Okay? Are you following? And here is the most important point. You do this enough number of times. Okay? The mind will stop taking you away. And that is what is called training. Training. The mind is trainable. Like a dog's tail, kutte ki dum, is not trainable. I have not experimented myself, but it is said if you put a straight pipe on a dog's tail for 10 years, and if you take it out, again it will curve. So you tried to train it for 10 years, but it is not trainable. So some things are not trainable. Mind is trainable. A very good example of this is a lion and an elephant. A lion by nature, both are very powerful. If both fight, sometimes lion wins, sometimes elephant wins, right? But lion is not trainable. Have you ever seen lion carrying wood in the forest? Or anybody riding on a lion? Have you seen people riding on an elephant? Or elephant being used for various tasks? Because first, it is hard to train the elephant, but for a given elephant, if you train it enough, then it automatically begins to do that activity, what you have trained. The point is, mind is very tough, like an elephant or lion, but it is, so in that way, it is the same like an elephant or lion, but in its trainableness, its ability to be trained, it is like the elephant, not like the lion. Lion, if you try to train it with a gun or with a chain for 10 years, the moment you remove the chain, it will come and eat you. Okay? But that is not the case with a elephant. So mind is like an elephant. It is very hard to train, very strong in the beginning. It will resist. But if you train it enough, you will succeed. Are you following? So that is the power of training the mind, knowing that the mind is trainable. And that is the essence of these 3 verses, which we will go through quickly now. So every word that is there in these 3 verses, you will see it, what we have discussed so far is going to be reflected in this. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga. So training means practice. Practice means what? You will fail, you will fail, you will fail. First n number of times you will fail. That is called practice. With determination and faith, but you should be determined. Don't give up. And not be deviated from the path. Don't give up. Keep doing the training. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. So keep controlling the mind. Next level. Gradually. Now this is very important. Shanai shanai. Step by step. So training does not occur overnight. It takes time to do the training. And this word shanai shanai is very important. It is showing that gradually, step by step, small steps at a time. Okay? Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. Full conviction that the mind is trainable. One day it will get trained. Now, for some people, they get an easy elephant. For some people, they get a very tough elephant. All elephants are hard to train, but some may get trained faster, some may take more time. Don't get discouraged. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. And here is the most important part, 26. Yato yato nishchalati manash chanchalam asthiram. So now 2 attributes of man are given here, chanchal and asthir. This is the meaning of being an elephant or a monkey. Mind by definition is chanchal and asthir, means flickering and unsteady. And yato yato nishchalati, whenever, yato means whenever, nishchalati means it wanders away. Tatas tato niyamyetad atmani eva vasham nayet. Every time, whenever it goes away, verse is not saying that you should beat yourself up, you should blame yourself. No. Verse is simply saying, tato tato vasham nayet. Just bring it back. Vash mein le aao. Vasham nayet. Vash mein kar lo. Bring it back. That's all. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. And when do you bring it back? The moment your conscious self realizes, it wandered away. So do this exercise and you will know what I mean. Don't do a theoretical analysis. Do a practical experiment yourself and you will realize what I am saying. Okay, so there will be a moment in time, oh, I said I want to do this. It went away. At that time, you bring it back. That's all. So in 15 minutes, maybe you will wander away for 14 minutes in the beginning. 1 minute only, you will say, very poor success rate. 1 minute only I could do properly. 14 minutes mind was thinking about other things. That's okay. Do it again in the evening. Another 15 minutes. Next day, another 15 minutes. Next day, another 15 minutes. Then you will see in 1 month. First, you start with only 1 minute distraction. 1 minute focus. It will increase to 5 or 7 minutes. Or maybe even full 15 minutes. That is called training. So like this, control the mind. So that is what this is saying. This verse is saying, and bring it back under the control of the self. Okay, so we will stop here. Any final questions, comments? Okay. So next week we have class, right? Yeah. So, okay. No questions, comments. So that's fine. And we will continue next week. All the Bhakti Shastri students should start considering preparing for the test. First module is first 6 chapters. So the test is upcoming. So please revise, start reviewing, revising your textbook and your homeworks. Okay. Ram Prabhu, you have question?
Yeah, just one quick question. After understanding these different forms of yogas and different spirits, different people that we know of, like Ravana or Mahatma Gandhi, or name them, right? I'm trying to understand what kind of yogis are they? Like, what kind of a yogi is a Mahatma Gandhi? What kind of a yogi is Ravana? Right? What kind of a yogi is, let's say, President Obama, right? So, is there a way of figuring that out?
Okay. I mean, I don't know about Obama. I mean, to become the president of the United States, it takes some guts and some mettle. Again, it's hard to kind of classify it as the forms of yoga we are discussing. Now, Mahatma Gandhi, you said, and you also talked about Ravana. So, of course, Ravana was a pure sense, he was personification of lust. So he was known to be a womanizer, the epitome of lust. Lust can be in different forms, lust for many things, power, name, fame, money, or the opposite gender.
But he was also a bhakta, right? He was also a bhakta of Shiva, right?
Let me finish.
Yeah.
No. He was never a bhakta of Shiva. Okay. Usko we call it bootlicking, or with a hidden agenda. You can call bhakta, but he is a what you call a rogue bhakta. वो कहते हैं ना मुंह में राम बगल में छुरी. So that kind of bhakta, yes. But the hidden agenda was, if I please Lord Shiva enough, he will grant me boons, and then I have nothing to do with Lord Shiva after that. That is not a true bhakta. Anyway, so, but he was definitely able to please Lord Shiva through his tapa. So you can say he was a tapa yogi. He was, very powerful. And of course, it needs control of the mind to be able to give up your hunger, your sleep, and all that. I don't know all the details. I'm not an expert on Ramayana, but there must be details of what kind of tapasya Ravan must have done. So it's somewhere in that category. Mahatma Gandhi also, I mean, to be able to give up a good career in South Africa and to have that conviction to come back to India, and that to not live like a popular, even after he became a very popular person, even after independence, he could have chosen to stay in New Delhi. He went to the border of Bangladesh and or East Pakistan in India and wanted to shut down the violence, and he would do what you call this amarana anshan, fasting till death. Those were some of the big reasons why the violence stopped. At least that's the history I have read. So there is some aspect of yoga involved in that, whether it is karma yoga, or you have to understand the consciousness. It's largely about the consciousness. So yes, there are those aspects, but I don't think it's very meaningful to discuss what kind of yogis they were. We should focus on what kind of yogis we want to be. There were certain situations that present that time, place, and circumstance was there, and they applied their strength of yoga to those situations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we will see you all next week. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you.
Prabhuji. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.